Hey, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Quarbit, and welcome to the 1.31 update and the Leviathan expansion. Today we've been given a very special task to try and create the tallest possible empire we can. And to do that, well, it might be a little bit of a spoiler, but we will be playing as the pirate nation of Palembang. Now, the exact specified goal is to at least try and become a great power through any means possible. However, we have to remain one state large, nothing more than that. All we can have is the state of Lampung. Of course, vassals are on the table, but using them means we'll have to try and get ourselves, well, essentially double the development of the 8th greatest power. Or at least, theoretically, that's how it would work. In this new update are a couple of features which allow us to abuse subjects a little more than usual. Now, of course, let's start off with our rivals, which will be Siak, Sunda, and Sambas. And we'll choose our deity, which in this case will actually be Ganesha. And it'll get us started off with a couple of extra galleys. Now we have a lot of work ahead of us, so let's not waste any time. Of course, first order of business is becoming the Pirate Republic. Okay, we'll ally ourselves up with Majapahit, just so I can grab this over here. And we will support the Haradasa movement, which will give us a little bit of stability cost modifier. So now, the real fun begins. One short raiding trip later, and we're already rich. So, with money like that, we can go ahead and hire a couple of advisors already. And if I can, I'd like to try and find someone to vassalize. Alright, naval force limits completed, so we get a couple of free claims. And so the time has come to begin our very first war. And while we're at it, we may as well go ahead and grab some galley combat ability as well. I might be using it pretty extensively. And there's the Renaissance. We should probably focus on developing that as soon as possible. I mean, it's not like it's gonna spread anywhere since everyone hates us. Alright, first government reform. Let's go and grab ourselves Articles of Agreement. Finally, we've grabbed the capital of Sunda, but I'm feeling a little bit like I'm low on manpower. Hey Majapahit, feel like you could maybe help me out with that one? Thanks, bud. Okay, off to target number 2. Now, it appears unfortunately I have chosen a target which is a little bit too large to vassalize, but thankfully he has an ally over here which isn't. So instead I'll go for this guy as a vassal. Now, he might not like me at first, but we can quickly change that. It also helps if we, reduce his size a little bit. He has a long enough truce anyway, so taking this development from him is not really gonna affect anything in the long run. So I'm just gonna yoink. Oh look, suddenly my capital is now 20 development. You're gonna be seeing a lot more of that today. Now, while I can't vassalize Banjar, I'm not necessarily going to be leaving empty-handed. And if we apply the same thing over to Sunda, you'll see that the capital is now 28 development. And that's where the real fun begins. Now, I'd like you to remember that pillaging capital is something that you can do an infinite number of times to an infinite number of enemies. After stealing a little bit from my vassal and plundering the capitals of 2 enemies, I have already gotten myself to 28 development. So you can imagine how far this can actually go. Now, plundering the capitals of enemies is a little bit expensive on the old manpower pool, but thankfully, with the new favor system, I can just go ahead and ask for a couple more. And if I ever run out of favors, then I can simply start creating my own. Since we're rich, I can also just go ahead and upgrade this harbor to a level 2, which will make it a little cheaper to develop in here. Now I can afford to buy a marketplace as well. Okay, now I think we are just about ready to develop the Renaissance here. Finally, our subject has come around and realized that for pillaging their capital, we're actually kind of good guys. Luckily for them, I'll reward that with a little bit of extra land down the line. Ooh, time for an extra form? Let's go with frequent elections. There we go, finally done. So now that the Renaissance is complete, and we've filled our pool with men from Majapahit, I think it's worth the time to go look around for some new friends. And I have got my eye on Jambi. So, let's go after his ally. Actually, I think I'll go after Siak instead. They do have a couple more provinces already, so just make it a little easier for me. Of course, no peace deal is complete without first pillaging at least one capital. And now we get to welcome our new friend, Siak. Of course, we'll start off by stealing a little bit of his development. Oh boy, here I go plundering again. Now, we have made some pretty decent progress so far, but there's just one little problem that's been sticking out for a little bit. And, that's the disloyalty of my subjects. Now, I'm sure at some point they'll come to love being a subject of the perfectly balanced one-state empire of Palembang, but just to remedy that as much as I can right now, we're going to be taking influence ideas. Another way to solve disloyalty is to simply give them a couple of extra provinces. So as such, I'll begin our conquest into Borneo. And once again, it's time for the next reform, which in this case will be global trade power. Now, Makassar's capital region is very thick, so of course we're going to be stealing a whole bunch of dev out of that. So there we go, we'll go with a quick pillage, and then of course a second pillage, and of course we'll be granting our subject a little bit of land. And now, after only about 30 years in the game, my capital has gone up to 55 development, which I'm willing to bet at this point is probably the highest dev'd province in the entire world. Or at least the highest dev that we can see. Of course, now we can also improve our capital to become a world port, and then we can turn on protect trade, which gives us a total of 26% of the Malacca trade node. Now, I've improved my relations with my vassals just about as much as I can. Unfortunately, they're still kind of disloyal. On the bright side, I did just give this guy a bunch of land, which means, of course, I can trade those favors that I got from giving him that land for a little bit of trust. So now he's only at 25%. Okay, we've picked up the second influence idea, which reduces the liberty desire of my subjects to pretty negligible, which means I think we're just about ready to go conquering again. And it's go time. And there we go, everything has been fully occupied. And of course it wouldn't be a proper war without a little bit of pillaging. And of course we'll pillage Pasai's capital as well, and the Jambi's land will go directly to my subject. Slowly but steadily, I'm gonna catch up to the Mamluks. We're already about a third of the way there. Just gotta keep these guys in check and we'll be good. Now, as our capital continues to grow and grow and grow, protecting it seems like a better idea every day. So let's put a fort on it. Now, Malacca's seeming like a pretty decent target these days. Especially with that juicy capital state they have here. Now, the next idea group I'm going to be taking will be economic, because the policy with influence will allow me to absolutely exploit my subjects. By the time I complete both of these idea sets, I will be getting 200% vassal force limit contribution, and 50% income from vassals. And finally, we have my favorite reform for pirates, the War Against the World Doctrine. So now we can declare war on just about anyone we want. So now we can get Kelantan out. And I'm a little short on manpower, so I'm going to go ahead and hire a couple of mercs. And finally, there goes the remainder of Malacca. Now, my subject has been holding his own pretty well against Kutai, but I think it's just about time we finally help him out. Okay, we finished up Kutai, and of course, we can't leave without doing a little bit of pillaging. And now we've finally reached the end goal, which is, of course, pillaging Malacca's beautiful and illustrious capital, taking war reps, money, and a couple of provinces. Which leads my capital to now be 68 development. Feels like what I'm doing is very illegal, and yet there are no rules against it. Why not just have a 68 dev capital in 1485? There we go. We can finish up our influence ideas. Okay, the war exhaustion's back down, the manpower's back up, and I'm ready for another war. This time we'll be going against Sunda, but not particularly for Sunda's land. What I really want is a vassal over here, Blambangan, so that I can at some point betray Majapahit and create my own vassal state out of Java. So, let's get started. Alright, first guy's being taken care of. Alright, first, Indrapura will leave. Alright, now Kutai is willing to leave, but you can't expect us to leave empty-handed, could you? Of course we'll have to go with another pillaging. And then we move on to Bali, where of course I will be pillaging their capital as well. There we go. Now there's no one left. And the siege of Blambangan is finally over with, which means I get a new friend. You'll love being extorted every month. Well, seeing as Sunda is still too large to vassalize, we're gonna have to reduce their development again. Okay, now that leaves our capital at 78 development. But it doesn't stop there, because I have a new subject who happens to have land I haven't yet exploited. So now we're up to a clean 80 development. Now, unfortunately for Majapahit, they have been an excellent ally. However, we're gonna have to break up. You know, it's not me, it's you. Your capital's a little too thick, and I really want its development, so yeah, I'm sorry. There we go. Now that's finished up. As per usual, I will be pillaging, of course. And naturally, we will be giving the rest to my subject. Ooh, already on to our 6th reform, huh? Well, I guess reforms are a lot faster when you don't have to wait for autonomy to tick down. I can't imagine really needing more than 3 diplomats, so we're just gonna go with the stability cost. Well, the truce with Majapahit has come up, you know the rules, and so do I. I'm sorry, Majapahit. There was only one way for us to continue, and it required East Java. Hey, colonialism's finally coming around. That means I'm probably gonna have to move my capital, considering considering the costs. Okay, Majapahit's done. Now we just have to siege out Maguinda now. Ooh, National Bank, that's pretty good. That'll help us with a lot of our inflation that we've had for a long time. And a military reform event? What is it, my birthday today or something? And there we are, finally, with our Smithian economics, giving us an additional 20% development cost decrease, and 25% income from vassals, and an additional 100% vassal force limit contribution. And so, for the very last time, we will be pillaging a capital and sending all of that straight back to Palembang, leaving our capital at a massive 88 development before we decide to move our capital to a new location. And of course, Blambangan will be receiving all of this land. Ooh, looks like someone's popular. We even caught the attention of Ming. Well, I mean, I have been privateering their coasts for like the past 20 years, so I'd be surprised if they didn't notice. Now, I was fiddling around a little bit with the missions and realized I hadn't taken this one yet, which gives us plus 100% income from vassals. If you combine that with the other things I've been doing, that gives us a total of 160% increase, which forces these guys to pay an absolutely extortionate amount every single month. Oh baby, now that is an economy. Why have tax and production when you can just extort your subjects every single month? We've reached the point where I have so much money, I literally don't know what else to spend my money on. I guess all that's left at this point is to just upgrade our advisors. Other than that, I've got nothing. Well, no reason to stop now. There we go. Now all we have to do is wait approximately a year or so until colonialism spreads over to our old capital, and then it should be dirt cheap to embrace. Oh yeah, let's also keep in mind I'm very much allowed to concentrate development, so let's go ahead and take a little bit from our subjects. And a yoink. And of course, as a reward for his hard work, Sambas can get a little bit of land. Psych, that's just so I could steal it. Okay, let's embrace the institution now. And our new capital is already at a healthy development of 53. And the rest of the world is gonna start sweating when they see Palembang hit the charts. And there isn't really a reason for me to stop conquering right now, so I may as well continue. Oh hey, there we go, now I found something to spend my money on. Mercenaries, of course. Unfortunately, it is impossible to fully annex them, so what I'll be doing is taking approximately these provinces, war reps, and money. Now, I'm a little bit low on manpower, but I am just so close to being done here. All I have to do is either literally wait a year or fight someone. Now, the obvious answer is to simply wait for a year. But if you think that's the plan, then you must be new here. Oh yeah, there it is. So, number 8 great power in 1512. Not bad, could have been a little faster, but, you know, not terrible. And although those were the minimum requirements, I feel like these borders are a little too ugly, so obviously I can't just leave them like this. And there goes Bali. And then of course the main man himself, Sunda. Now isn't that a clean looking subject? Okay, neat, now let's do that, but for the rest of the subjects too. Okay, now technically the challenge has been completed, but it really hasn't even been 100 years yet, so I think we're gonna move those goalposts, and I think we might go for first great power instead. And a really easy way to do that is to simply concentrate even more development into my capital. Eventually we're gonna have to move this thing again, and after that, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. But for now I can click this button to put a little more development into our capital, and then this one as well to put another 6. That brings our new capital to 59 development. But it doesn't exactly stop there either, because our subject, Siak here, has a really good state to take some development from. So not much else to do other than to keep expanding. Or I could go ahead and take the next tech, which is actually pretty important, because I'm actually going to take a bit of an odd pick for our next idea group. I actually think expansion would be a pretty good idea, so let me explain that. You see, all I have to do is colonize this province, and that'll complete all of the provinces in this state. And of course, if I colonize more provinces, then I can just give them over to my subjects. The point I'm really getting at is that it's for border reasons. Also, if I occupy all the land, then that's less land that the Europeans can occupy, and it might buy me a little bit of time before I get declared on. You know, assuming the game lasts that long. There we go, we can pick up our first colonist. And it's rarely something I ever do, but I think this time I actually will pick up native trading policy. The only reason is for that 50% additional native assimilation, which is a little bit helpful on these guys. It'll give me a permanent modifier to goods produced, which, since I only have 5 provinces, is actually worth it this time. Okay, time for our Tier 7 reform. I'm gonna pick up an extra admin policy. And we are completely done this war, so let's distribute the land a little bit. Sambas can get this much land, and the Johor can get all of this. You know, I think I've discovered quite a nice strategy, actually. Now, of course, stealing development from my subjects makes them a little bit angry, but when I steal their development, it makes their land cheaper to develop, so you just put some development back into them so that they don't feel so angry about it. Meanwhile, you're really saving a massive expense by not deving your capital directly using your points, or something like that. So I can steal a total of 10 development from this guy, and then invest like 2. This might actually be stronger than I initially realized. So now our new capital, which we moved over to like 20 years ago, is now at 84 development, and it only goes further from there. We've also now gotten to the point where I can basically just fight every single war with no maintenance on, because now I can just use mercenaries for just about everything. In fact, our economy's doing pretty well. It's second only to Ming right now. I'm sure when we discover the Europeans, that's going to be flipped on its head. But for now, I'll take it. Oh boy, here I go stealing again. Ah, and there it is, finally. The first 100 development province in 1527. There'll be a couple more where that came from. Ah, there we go, the first colony's now done. And we can start on the second one. Alright, now we can give Johor another very clean looking state. And yoink. And of course I'm just gonna take a little bit of that. And drop just a little bit of development. Ah, there we go, province number 2 to get to, over 100 development. And we finally have our expansion ideas completed, which will allow us to get even more income from our vassals. Oh, nice capital you got there, Pegu. You wouldn't mind if I just... And we're ready for our Tier 8 reform, which in this case will be the manpower recovery speed. Alright, now let's finally kick these guys out of Borneo. Okay, so Brunei can be the first to leave. And then Manila, and then Maguindanao, but I will be taking these provinces and creating a subject. So, let's welcome Mattias into this world. Let's go ahead and give him a couple of provinces. Alright, you know what? I consider that a second milestone. We have reached the cap on how expensive you can make one click of development. And every time I want to debase something, I get a ridiculous amount of that resource. For instance, I could just easily get 7.3 thousand manpower from one click. That's probably as much as I get from an entire slacken. Okay, we have finished up this colony over here. So now the island of Borneo is complete. And I know we just got a new subject, but I feel like I could go for another one. And there we are. Now, I technically can't vassalize him outright, but I am allowed to fully annex and then release him once again, just because the War of the World applies to provinces and not subjugation, so it still counts. So, here we are. Alright, so I have figured out a way to successfully steal my subjects' trade, so now I get to make even more money. The total income of 81 ducats a month. A lot of that being our vassals, actually. But anyway, that allows me to take this mission for more trade efficiency, and this mission for goods produced modifier. And our new friend Luwu has been such a nice subject, I think I'll give him a little bit of extra land. So, Mattias can have this land, and Luwu can have this. Of course, the natural next step would be to go after Tidor. And hey, the printing press is here. And yoink. Now this is actually a colony, and I'll keep this so that I can finish colonizing it. Okay, now that we have the printing press in play, it's finally time to move our capital once again, so this one will be left off at roughly 139 development. We'll see if that gets any larger. After all, Palembang certainly did. So, let's get started. And there we go. Just gotta wait for that to spread around to the other provinces, and we'll be able to embrace it. Alright, in time for that second last reform, the only one that would even make sense here would definitely be advisor cost. Okay, our truces are up, so let's go pay them a visit. And naturally, all of this land will be going to Matias. Now, I really want to conquer the rest of the Philippines. But the problem is that, well, Tondo's a tributary of Ming. Am I willing to fight Ming for, like, 3 provinces? Yeah. Alright, time to pop our galley combat ability and see what these guys can really do. Most of their combat width is filled up with heavy ships, meaning I think we're gonna do a little better with the fact that we can just field so many galleys at once. Oh god, oh my god, that was an absolute slaughter. Oh no. It wasn't even the heavies we killed, it was the galleys, which means now he has nothing to fight back with. And we can finally take our next idea group. Now I thought about it a lot, and the options we have are plutocratic, diplomatic, trade, and quantity. But diplomatic would allow me to get 1 new subject, as well as improving the decay rate of all of the terrible things I've been doing to my subjects. So I think diplomatic is a pretty safe bet right about now. Okay, now Tondo has fully given up. However, there's just a little bit more that I want, and that's going to be Macau. If I could just get 1 little trade subject in this region, like Yue, then that opens up the opportunity to conquest further into China later. And that might be where the rest of our development is going to come from. And there we go. The perfect peace deal. So let's release our subject Yue here. And then of course we're going to take his trade as well. And here we are at our 10th and final reform. We're not going to be playing this game too far into absolutism, so instead I'll be picking the Reinforced Republican Values one, just so I can re-elect a little bit cheaper. Alright, now I can build a trade station in here, which will give me a lot more money. There we go. Finally finished up Sulawesi. Doesn't that look nice? Hey, there we go. Province number 3, up to 100 development. Which puts us ahead of Ming, actually. The only problem we have to deal with is now the Ottomans, who seem to be expanding rather rapidly. So, in an attempt to push ahead, we're going to be invading through Ayutthaya. So, let's begin. Okay, Ayutthaya has been sieged, and we're gonna go ahead and try to sneak up into here before they actually get there. So that will get the advantage. I went ahead and scorched this. So this guy is going to bash his head into this army here, and any reinforcements would take a very long time to get there. And then we can just do it again. Alright, well, we're getting there, slowly but surely. Many thousands of men later. But there we go, now we can take the next Miltech, so it should be a little easier to finish up. And there you have it. My subject will be receiving all of these provinces here, making him by far one of the strongest subjects I'm going to have. So now our empire is over 1,000 development. Unfortunately, the Ottomans and Spain have sort of surpassed us a little bit. Spain not so much, but the Ottomans for sure. But one thing I never considered, and I have no idea why I didn't think about this, is that I could just invade Japan. Like this entire time, there are always like a bunch of tags you can just pop out for free. And I never once thought to myself, hey, you know what would be a good idea? Expanding in like the easiest possible place. So, you know, let's start with that. I don't really have enough manpower, so I'll just use the mercs for this. And of course my subjects will come along and help too. I had every reason to consider the idea, I just never did it. So yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and vassalize him. Or I could take all of his land and release him, that would also work. It's a little bit more aggressive expansion, but that's alright. At least it gives me a bit of free money. Oh, we're so close, we just need like 50 more dev. This is such a struggle because I have to take twice as much dev as everyone else. Okay, here, maybe I can invade Hosokawa and then reconquest all these cores for my subject. That might be enough. And there we go. Diplotech costs decrease, which can also get us more trade power, more diplo rep, and a little bit of tax. Tributary fleet beset by pirates. I am the pirates. That's literally what I do, that's the point. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, a complete reconquest of all of Uesugi's cores, plus a little bit extra. So we can go ahead and give him a couple of extra provinces as well. And of course we have a couple of provinces to be handing over to Luwu. Now this puts us finally in the #1 spot. #1 great power. Took until 1593, a little longer than I imagined it would have. Oh boy. But there it is, finally done. Now, the borders aren't looking perfect, of course, you know, I got a couple of colonies still out and about for the subjects to pick up when they're done. But I'm just gonna do one last little check just to see how high I can get a single province right about now. We're starting off at 144 development in this one province. I can take a little bit from Madias, and then of course a whole bunch from Ueski here. And that brings us to a grand total of 189 development in a single province. Now, if I didn't move the capitals around so much, then we would have seen a much larger number here. Definitely somewhere around the 300 development mark, probably 350. But that means that yes, we basically exploited, or rather stole, at least 300 development from capitals and subjects, which is really, really powerful. Obviously before, you wouldn't be able to reach numbers near this high in one province. Or at least you could, but it would certainly take you a very, very long time. Our economy is also definitely the best that we can see. Maybe there's a European power that has more than this. And if anything, I hope this sort of highlights the many things you can now do in 1.31 to play tall. Obviously before it would have been a much harder challenge than in this patch. And as someone who doesn't really like to play tall, I have to admit I actually kinda had fun here. Managing subjects and figuring out ways to get as much development as possible out of them is actually quite a lot of fun. So if you ever want to try and do the same challenge, I definitely encourage it, because it's probably one of the more unique things I've done in EU4. But that's going to be it for me for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you're new around here, don't forget to subscribe. If you liked the video, be sure to leave a like, leave a dislike if you didn't like it. This is Quarbit signing off, and as always, have a fantastic day. Of course, I'd like to give a special thank you to all of the people over on Patreon for the month of April. Starting with those we have in the General tier: Quiet Guy, Brendan Arsenault, Ben Greenhagen, Torvald, Dire Avenger, and Farron. Those in the Prince tier: Snow Raven, Rockbox 2020, and Robert Caleno. Those in the King tier: Chewy Shoot and Natsuki. In the Elector tier: TFLJ Martis. And in the Conqueror of Worlds tier: The Watcher. Thank you guys so much for your pledges this month. It means a lot to me.